Hi everyone and welcome to Autosport. It's me, Mann-Bryans, joined by Filip Cleeren. We're here, as you see, at the Jeddah Corniche circuit where we've had the media day today. Let's start with the wind tunnel story. It's done quite good numbers across Autosport this week. Christian Horner saying the discrepancy between the data they're seeing in the wind tunnel and on track is the main cause for the Red Bull's issue, but Max didn't tend to agree with that really, did he?
Yeah, it is a known issue. Of course, the wind tunnel, it is an aging one. They are building a new one for 2027. But until then, they do have to make do with what they have.
Yeah.
And it's clearly compromising them. But Max is also saying it's not just the wind tunnel, because which one did we use when we had a dominant car in 22 and 23? It's the same one. So it would be short-sighted to just put it all on that. There is more going on than that with the car. But it is not helping if you can't see the issue in a wind tunnel and you go to a bumpy circuit and suddenly the car is not drivable. It is an issue, but he says it's not just down to that.
Did he pinpoint anything else, or was he disconcertingly vague about where he thought the issues might be?
He was quite vague. Yeah,
you have to be, I guess.
As he should be. What did strike me is that he was struck quite a different tone compared to Bahrain last Sunday, when there was a bit of a crisis meeting and he was quite frustrated, qualifying 7th and then finishing 6th, having to struggle to beat Pierre Gasly and Alpine. Now he seems to be a bit more resigned. Maybe is a strong word, but he clearly has done everything he can to get the most out of the car. Told the team what the issues are. They still haven't fixed them, so he's a bit like, yeah, that's all I can do, really.
They put him into the driver's press conference today, and I can't help but think that was hoping that someone might poke the bear and get an answer out of him. But he was actually quite diplomatic, wasn't he? He said, look, I'm working with the team, I'm with the team. And I think for Max, that it shows almost a level of maturity that some people sometimes don't associate with him. And the team almost. That team, we see 1 week to the next, Helmut Marko might come out and say something, and Christian Horner might have to defend what was said. And it's
exactly. He also sees how much noise there is about the team. Anytime anybody says anything, that just gets amplified, so he kind of knows he has to play a role in that, I suppose.
He was joined in that press conference by Fernando Alonso, another world champion, and there's been talk for quite a while now that Max Verstappen might be tempted to an Aston Martin seat in the future, maybe even as early as next year.
Yeah, $1 billion.
It's not bad, is it? It's what they offered me when I joined Autosport. Yeah. But when you look at that, Fernando basically said, I've got a contract, so I don't really see it happening. Yeah. I'd love it to happen. I think anyone would, wouldn't they? Yeah. But also I think it was worth noting that he said it's great for Aston Martin that people are even suggesting a 4-time world champion would want to come and drive this car. What do you make of that, and what do you make of what Fernando said? Because he almost said, look, we're not there yet, but he seems to really still think this team can go somewhere, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's certainly not an attractive team on current performance. Yeah. So, yeah, it's inevitable that China is going to continue happening, because they've got Newey, they've got Honda, they've got a lot of key components of what made Red Bull tick as well. So there are a lot of interesting links there, interesting, enticing factors for Max to move. It will keep happening, but again, you really have to wait and see what happens in 26, I feel, with these new cars before you jump the gun.
Absolutely. We can dovetail all that nicely, almost like we planned this in advance. We talk about the wind tunnel issues, maybe the car design issues at Red Bull. We talk about the progress at Aston Martin. That leads us to Adrian Newey. You mentioned him there.
Yep.
We've basically been told today, no matter how bad this car gets, he's fully focused on 26. So I guess that was kind of the expectation, but would there have been a temptation? You spoke to Andy Cowell about it. Would there have been an expectation that maybe they could drag him away, or would he have gone in and explicitly said, I'm here for 26?
It is certainly tempting to try and bring him in, can't you? But if you look at all the deadlines that a team needs to hit, and Newey still new with the team, the way Andy Cowell explained it is he still needs to get up to speed with all the tools that we use and how to make the most of those. And then there are quite aggressive deadlines you need to hit with things like the monocoque and the chassis for next year. So it's better to just keep him on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he has feedback on the tools they're using, which are the same tools they're using this year, that might help them. But he's not expected to directly look at a 25 car and work on that.
I suppose it's that short-term pain for long-term gain, isn't it? That's the idea. I went down to the paddock and I was with the two McLaren drivers earlier on. Oscar Piastri just exuding confidence, that quiet Australian confidence we've seen of him so far this season. Lando Norris, who, like Max Verstappen, enjoyed a bit of a tough weekend in Bahrain, and as always was really open with the media about his own struggles. Sometimes I feel for him a little bit when he sits there and opens up like that, but it's manna from heaven for us guys, isn't it? He said, look, I'm self-critical 95% of the time. I think that's a good thing, which I can kind of agree with. You have to criticise yourself, you have to be able to your own worst critic and things like that. But he said, look, I'm not coming here full of confidence. And why would he be if the performances he's had? You know, he struggled last weekend, he made errors, didn't he? Almost throughout the weekend in Shanghai. And I was thinking about it when he was talking. It was like, yes, he won in Australia, but that was the only race we've had where there were the variables of the weather and things like that. Yeah. Since then, Piastri's really had his number, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Again, there's always this debate, is it mental, is it technical? I think it's mainly technical. The way he speaks about himself is kind of therapeutic as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Just getting it out there rather than just internalizing it and, you know, going crazy in his hotel room every night. Like he's spoken about what he feels he's lacking, and yeah, it's really up to him and the team to get him comfortable in that car, and then I think we'll see an interesting battle between the two. But until that point comes, Piastri looks like a man on fire, doesn't he? Like, unflappable, quick.
Yeah, it looks really good, and talks a good game at the moment. So he's so level-headed. Our boss, actually, Rebecca Clancy, always says whenever she speaks in Norris, she just wants to give him a hug, and it does feel like that sometimes, doesn't it? But he also said, look, I'm leading the World Championship. If I'm struggling to drive the car, if I'm not getting the results that other people are getting, and I'm leading the World Championship, in a way, it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad result.
Yeah, and when I do click and when I do improve, maybe that gap grows. So I suppose he's right. And he said, I think this was a little bit far. He said, I'd have dreamed of this start if you'd have asked me before the season. I guess leading the championship he would have done, but I think his main concern at the moment, as well as being in his own head, is that pace and that performance of Oscar Piastri, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a difficult teammate to go up against, because you know Piastri's not going to break, or he's not going to do anything silly. And you know what's funny? It's all down to the smallest details, isn't it? Because we're speaking about Lando winning the opening race, and Piastri obviously went off and spun. But it could have been the other way around easily. They both went off. You know, Piastri was a bit unlucky there, and then we would have been talking about a completely different story. So it's just funny sometimes how it works.
There's fine margins, isn't it? Fine margins around here this weekend. Will it be again, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think McLaren won't be as dominant because of the circuit. Yeah, but they'll still be ahead of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Charles Leclerc said they now figured out that Ferrari may be 2 to 3 tenths behind McLaren as a whole, as like the natural gap between them. I guess maybe that's fair enough, and that they're in that pack, aren't they, with Red Bull and Mercedes?
Yeah. I would not be able to predict who's second fastest. Like, it just fluctuates so much.
George Russell actually spoke about it a little bit. He said, look, McLaren are head and shoulders ahead of everyone else. You can't really argue that. Max Verstappen's victory in Suzuka aside, but then again the dirty air argument comes to that. But George Russell did make an interesting point, and you're more technically minded than me, so maybe you'll be able to expand on it. Well, you're leading the race all right as F1 Fantasy League, so we'll put a crown on him in the edit.
That's where my expertise comes in.
George Russell said, look, they're head and shoulders, but we don't know what's going to happen in Barcelona. When they go to Barcelona, the flexi wing rules are clamped down on massively. Yeah. Could it cause such a flip? Could we see that gap close massively, and maybe even McLaren fall back into the pack a bit like Red Bull did last year?
So I would say so, because flexing wings is something McLaren exploited so well. I spoke to Max today as well about Rob Marshall, who went from Red Bull to McLaren. Of course. And Max also said, like, he makes a huge difference. He knows those wings and that phenomenon so well. So I feel like it has to, but McLaren have kept saying, like, it won't affect us, we're on top of it. I guess we have to trust them for now, but I'm really interested for that weekend. Yeah.
Great. Well, hopefully there'll be more interesting things this weekend too, so join us again tomorrow. We've also got the live blog running, and there's Race Centre this weekend to look forward to on Motorsport. But until then, me and Phil are off to eat some hummus, so take care everyone.